At the underbridge of Lagos that had become an ambush for the forgotten, an adolescent girl, barefoot and dusty, stood arctic on the sidewalk, captivation a atramentous nylon bag. Central it was a bleared bowl of jollof of rice and an algid canteen of water, her aboriginal meal of the day. She hadn't taken a distinct bite. Afresh she heard an anemic voice. "Please, I haven't eaten in 2 days." The articulation came from a bend abreast the bottom of the admission artery light. It was asperous and dry like sandpaper. She angry and saw him a aphotic beggar, his eyes atramentous white, sitting on admission cardboard, abashed hardly from hunger. Ella's aperture trembled. The aliment was meant for her and her mother. Her mother who hadn't eaten a back yesterday. Her mother who told her aloof that morning, "If you see addition in worse affliction than you, accord what you can alike if it's all you have." And now, her mother's articulation echoed louder than the cavernous in her belly. She angled down. "Uncle, here, eat this, please." The man's easily activate the bag and tore into the nylon. Within seconds, the jaw of rice was gone. He drank the baptize in one continued gulp. Afresh wiped his aperture with the back of his hand. Then he did article unexpected. He smiled, angry in her direction, and whispered, "Thank you, adolescent lady. You don't apperceive what you've aloof done?" Ella blinked. What did he mean? "Can you booty me to your mother?" he asked calmly, wiping his award to join his achromatic trousers. She hesitated, afresh nodded slowly. Beforehand that day, afore this moment, Ella's day had amorphous like all the others in struggle. She awoke coiled beside her mother on a bedfast carton below the bridge, her abdomen already groaning with emptiness. Their tiny bag of clothes was abashed deeply in her mother's arms. The abandoned accoutrements they had larboard aback the blaze captivated their roadside accoutrement boutique 2 months ago. That blaze was never explained. One day they had a activity, and the abutting they were below the bridge. Helen, a woman of abundant dignity, admitting her admission adhesive and beat slippers, had never chock-full assertive in kindness. She aloft Ella on principles alike in poverty. "Don't any time anathema this life," she would say, abbreviating the bandage on her head. "We're alive, and while we breathe, we action with love." It was an aberrant affair to allege of adulation while sleeping beside carrion and algidity through the night, but Ella believed her. At 10 years old, Ella had chock-full activity to school. Her books were ashes and her classroom had become the streets. She spent best canicule begging. Not aggressively, she had manners. Helen accomplished her to smile and say, "Good afternoon, Ma. Amuse advice me eat." That day she stood abreast a accepted roadside bower, watching barter airing in and out. Her eyes darted amidst plates of rice and the money exchanging hands. A middle-aged woman in a dejected Anara clothes noticed her. "Are you hungry?" she asked. Ella nodded silly. "Wait here." The woman abolished and alternate with a hot bowl of jollof of rice and an algid canteen of water. "Here, eat and be safe," she said, handing it to Ella. "Thank you, Ma." Ella beamed, tears pricking her eyes. Clutching the aliment like treasure, she angry and began the airing aback to the underbridgeage to allotment it with her mother. Afresh came the aphotic man, and aggregate changed. "Why do you appetite to see my mother?" Ella asked as they absolved boring through the attenuated alleyway abaft a artisan shop. She accurate the man's bend gently, allowance him abstain potholes. "I aloof appetite to accommodated the woman who aloft you," he said, his articulation abnormally calm. "Bodies like you don't aloof happen. You're taught." Aback they accomplished the abandoned abode with the aperture zinc roof. Helen was built in on a board stool. Acclamation Ella's abandoned clothes with a aggravate and thread. She looked up as they approached. "Ella, who is this man?" He was hungry. "Mama, I gave him the food." Helen's eyes widened, afresh abounding with pride, not anger. She stood up boring and offered the man her stool. "You charge be tired. Amuse sit," she said softly. "Thank you," the man replied, blurred himself down. He angry his arch hardly adjoin her. "You aloft her?" "Well, she's all I have," Helen whispered. There was a continued silence. Afresh the man accomplished into his aback abridged and brought out article strange, a baby bankrupt card. He handed it to Ella. "Read this." Ella abundant it. It was a business card. She squinted. "Mr. Jonathan Adabio, CEO, Adabio Holdings." She blinked. Her affection skipped. Helen, accomplished over, took the card and gasped. "No, this can't be real," she muttered. "Adabio Holdings, the billionaire company." Mr. Jonathan smiled faintly. "I absent my afterimage 5 years ago in an accident." but I didn't lose my purpose. Back then, I go out from time to time bearded as a beggar, not because I charge food but to acquisition hearts like yours, bodies who still accord a back they accept nothing. Ella's jaw dropped. Helen's knees gave way, and she abandoned to the floor. No, this is a dream, she whispered. It's not. And today I activate who I've been attractive for. He stood slowly, extensive for his buzz in his pocket. I'll accelerate my disciplinarian now. I appetite you both to appear with me. To where? Ella asked, still trembling. He smiled. Home. As they waited beside the admission gate, a glassy Atramentis SUV pulled up, its brave windows rolling bottomward to acknowledge a uniformed chauffeur. The moment Helen and Ella stepped into the car, Mr. Jonathan fabricated a call. Yes, acquaint the agents to adapt the bedfellow edition and amuse anxiety the arch of grace all-embracing school. We accept the appropriate apprentice to annals tomorrow. Ella looked up from her seat, eyes wide. Me? Mr. Jonathan nodded, animated gently. It's time your dream started. But aloof as the car pulled into the Capitol Road, a Atramentis van boring began afterward them from a ambit unnoticed. As the Atramentis SUV weaved through the active streets of Lagos, Ella sat agilely beside Mr. Jonathan, the CEO angry aphotic beggar, who had aloof angry her apple upside down. Her fingers were clenched deeply about her mother's hand, as if absolution go would death watch her from a dream. Aggregate acquainted unreal, the algid air of the car's AC, the bendable seats, the aroma of big-ticket leather and the surreal accuracy. About the man built-in aloof beside her. Helen, too, sat in abashed silence, her aperture effective in prayer. Her eyes were anchored on the road, admitting her thoughts were antagonism elsewhere. Could this absolutely be happening? But abaft them, the Atramentis van kept its slow, abiding pace, consistently aloof out of sight. The SUV pulled up in advance of a massive acreage in Ikoi. Towering white gates boring swung accessible to acknowledge a abode that looked like article out of a movie. Able marble pillars, manicured gardens, and a driveway lit with balmy Orient lights continued as far as Ella could see. Welcome to your new home, Mr. Jonathan said as the bear stepped out and opened their door. Ella couldn't move. Her legs acquainted like jelly. She glanced at her mother, whose eyes had welled up with bashful tears. I haven't absolved through a aboido in months, Helen whispered. Adolescent woman in a tailored clothing approached them with a ablaze smile. Good evening, sir. I'm Clara, the domiciliary manager. Aggregate is ready. Mr. Jonathan Angria joined Ella. Clara will appearance you your rooms. Freshen up. Banquet will be served in 30 minutes. I'll accompany you shortly. Ella nodded, still speechless. Their new bedchamber was annihilation, like the aperture-abandoned abode they had been calling home. Cream-cold walls, bendable clover curtains, a sparkling chandelier, and a bed big abundant to fit 4 people. Ella tiptoed into the bathroom, and aback she saw the aflame bathtub and creamy towels. She gasped. Mama, is this absolutely for us? Helen captivated her in a hug. It is, my child, I don't perceive how, but it is. Aloof then, there was a beating on the door. Clara stepped in with 2 arcade bags. Miss Ella, I brought article appropriate for you. Central were new clothes, shoes, and a gleam backpack. You're starting academy tomorrow, Clara said. Grace International, abounding scholarship. The arch already accepted your admission. Ella's easily trembled as she best up the backpack. I'm activity back to school. Clara smiled. You're not aloof activity back, your activity to thrive. Afterwards that night, afterwards dinner. A 3-course meal served in a bottle dining allowance overlooking a lit garden. Mr. Jonathan arrived them to sit with him in the lounge. The allowance smelled of age-old cops and cologne. Paintings lined the walls, trophies from altruistic work, alms awards and certificates affected in gold abashed proudly on one side. I wasn't consistently like this, Mr. Jonathan said, sitting on a clover couch, pikestaff comatose beside him. I was already a algid businessman, focused on accumulation and power. But 5 years ago, a blaze aloof like the one that took your boutique afflicted my life. Helen's eyes widened. My wife and babe died in it. I survived, but I absent my sight. I absent aggregate that fabricated activity accounted. Ella's duke crept into her mother's, binding tightly. I went into ambuscade not because I was abashed, but because I bear to accept suffering. I bear to acquisition bodies who hadn't absent their altruism, admitting accepting nothing. He angry as aphotic eyes adjoin Ella. And today I activate that person. There was silence. Afresh he angry to Helen. Ma, you did article powerful. You aloft a adolescent who still gives a like a back she has nothing. That affectionate of affection can change the world. Helen afraid on a sob. I appetite to advice you both rebuild not as charity but because the apple needs added Ella's. The afterward day, Ella wore her new compatible with pride. She couldn't stop twirling in advance of the mirror. Her beard had been braided neatly. Her shoes clicked proudly on the marble attic as she absolved with Clara Ara to the cat and mouse car. Helen watched with tear-airy eyes, continuing beside Mr. Jonathan, who leaned on his cane. You've accustomed me aback my child's future, she said quietly. I abandoned bald-headed it, he replied. But aloof as the gates opened to let the academy car out, the aforementioned Atramentis van from the night of 4 crept to a stop 2 streets away. A man in a achromatic anorak lit a cigarette and best up a phone. She's here, he said, the babe and the mother, and the old man's aphotic as a bat. A articulation on the added end of the band responded, Good. Keep eyes on them. Don't act yet. We'll booty them aback, the time is right. Ella's Aboriginal day at Brand All-Embracing Academy was like walking into a new world. The classrooms had air conditioning. The walls were busy with paintings and adorning quotes. Students wore apple pie uniforms and batten with big dreams in their eyes. But Ella was bent not to feel small. Aback her abecedary asked, What do you appetite to be aback you abound up? She stood up and said proudly, A medical doctor. So I can advise ailing bodies like my astronomic helped me. There was a moment of silence. Afresh the sheik erupted in claps, but addition was watching alike here. A attendant who wasn't absolutely a janitor. He watched Ella from a distance, a baby earpiece hidden below his cap. She's applicable in quickly, he muttered. Better move faster. Mr. Jonathan sat with Clara Aura and his advocate afterwards that evening. I appetite Helen to accept buying of one of our mini-marts, he said. Set it up for her with a bounding staff. Let her administer it if she wants or aloof acquire from it. And adapt the assurance for Ella's apprenticeship up to medical school. Clara Aura nodded, her eyes shining. Sir, this will change their lives forever. It already has, he whispered. But aloof as he stood to acknowledgement to his room, his pike staff bumped into a baby camera that wasn't there before. He bested up, frowning. Clara Aura, get me security. Now as night fell and Ella lay comatose in her new room, absent of white coats and stethoscopes, a tremendous amount scaled the alien fence of the estate. Silently, swiftly, in the back room, Clara Aura gasped as Aegis played the CCTV footage backward. There's a breach, the bouncer said, and the aftermost frame a masked amount continuing at the back door. Captivation a syringe. The abode was captivated in an awesome silence. Outside, the cops affected cautiously in the night wind. But central the estate, anxiety accretion were agilely campanology only, not the affectionate that fabricated noise. Central the Aegis room. Clara Aura leaned over the monitor, her easily abashed slightly. The masked amount in the aftermost anatomy was still paused on the screen. The syringe and duca glow faintly below the night camera's infrared. Who is this? She demanded, her articulation sharp. We don't apperceive yet, the arch-bouncer replied. No one's admission into the acreage in over 5 years. But whoever this is, they knew area to enter. The back gate's motion sensors were disabled manually. Clara Aura's abdomen twisted. She best up her buzz and dialed Mr. Jonathan's emergency number. Meanwhile, in her room, Ella angry in her sleep, aphotic of the danger aloof a few meters from her window. Her dreams were peaceful. She was acid a white doctor's coat walking through a hospital hallway. A couchmate smiled at her. Her mother stood abaft her, clapping. Then suddenly the dream shifted. The walls went dark. Her mother disappeared. A faceless man in an affectation stepped forward. Ella jolted awake. She looked about the aphotic room, breath heavily, and afresh there was a knock. A distinct bendable beating on the bottle window. She froze. Another knock. This time louder. She tiptoed to join the aphotic and pulled it abreast aloof an inch but saw no one. Ella, the articulation whispered. She gasped. It wasn't her mother. It wasn't Clara Aura. It wasn't anyone she knew. The door knob to her allowance started to turn, but before it could open, there was a loud sound. The Aegis anxiety blared. Red lights flashed beyond the hallway. From the estate's intercom, a calm yet abutting articulation echoed through every room. Lockdown initiated. All association abide in your rooms. Mr. Jonathan stood in his hallway, clutching his pike staff tightly. Clara rushed to join him. Sir, we accept an burglar inside. They were abreast Ella's room. "Is she safe?" he asked quickly. "We accept so. The guards are closing in, but addition on your agents had to advise them in. This wasn't an accidental break-in." Mr. Jonathan's aperture tightened. "It started again," he muttered. "What do you mean?" He angry to her, his aphotic eyes still intense. "Addition out there doesn't appetite me to advise Ella or her mother." Later, as the badge accustomed and began their search, Ella and her mother were escorted to an anchored bedfellow room. Mr. Jonathan, abutting them anon after, guided a claim by Clara Ara. "I'm so sorry," he said to them both. "Who would do this?" Helen asked, wrapping her accoutrements deeply about her daughter. "I've fabricated enemies over the years," he said quietly. "People who don't like that I accord money away, that I advise the poor." He angry hardly adjoined them. "But now I accept this wasn't aloof about me. It was about you, about Ella." Helen's eyes widened. "Why would anyone appetite to abuse us? I don't apperceive yet, but I will acquisition out, and I will assure you, no amount the cost." The abutting morning, a Aegis administrator activate article aberrant in the acreage garden. A pendant, old rusted but acutely expensive. On its back was a name carved in baby cursive letters. Iamede. Aback Clara showed it to Mr. Jonathan, his face stiffened. "I apperceive this name." He sat bottomward slowly. Iome was already a agent's affiliate actuality years ago. A ablazy adolescent man. I sponsored his apprenticeship aloof like Ellis. "What happened to him?" Clara Ara asked. "He abolished one night. Absolute millions from our alms armamentarium and vanished." "But why would he appear aback now?" Clara Ara asked. "Maybe he never left." Admitting the chaos, Mr. Jonathan insisted Ella attend school. "We can't let abhorrence booty your dreams away," he told her. She nodded bravely and got into the academy car, this time with 2 Aegis escorts afterward behind. Her day started well. She fabricated 2 new friends, Simei and Joshua, who showed her about and fabricated her feel welcome. They laughed calm in the cafeteria, and for the aboriginal time in months, Ella acquainted like an adolescent afresh until she activate the note. It was slipped into her locker. "Stay abroad from the old man or the abutting time your mother won't death watch up." She froze, easily trembling. She rushed to the abecedary and gave her the note. The arch was called. Clara Ara was notified. By afternoon, Ella was pulled from academy and rushed home below a bounding guard. Mr. Jonathan met her at the door. "They're watching us closely," he said. "This is no best aloof about kindness. This is a war," join hope. That night, as restriction thickened in the mansion, Mr. Jonathan alleged Helen to his clandestine study. "I charge to ask, is there annihilation in your accomplished we should apperceive about?" Helen hesitated. Afresh she nodded. "Years ago, afore I met Ella's father, I formed as a secretary an aggregation that was complex in adumbrel dealings. Aback I activate out and approved to abode it. I was affected and fired. One of the men abaft it was named." She paused, trembling. "I am eyed." Mr. Jonathan's pike staff abandoned from his hand. "Helen, that's the aforementioned man." Aloof then and burning beating came to the door. "A bouncer admission in. Sirma, addition bankrupt into the school." Ella's name was aching assimilate the chalkboard with red paint. "What? Sir, that's not all." They larbored a message. He handed Clara Ara a picture. On it was a photo of Ella in academy that day, amidst by 2 animated friends. But one of them, Joshua, had been circled in red marker, and abaft the circle addition had accounting in decrepit ink. "She will accord everything." Aloof like before, the abode was no best a abode of peace. It had become a fortress. Aegis cameras buzzed. Dogs barked. Every avenue and admission point was now manned by uniformed guards. Inside, Helen sat agilely in the bend of the active room, her accoutrements captivated deeply about Ella, who trembled admitting the balmy bandy absolute about her. She will accord everything. Aloof like before, that bulletin apparitional them both. And worse, Joshua, the cheerful, affectionate boy Ella had aloof met, was the one circled. But why? Mr. Jonathan sat silently in his armchair, his fingers steepled below his chin. Admitting blind, his instincts were bluff than best men with sight. His apperception was racing. "I don't accept in coincidences," he said finally. "If I met as abaft this, a fresh edition central is alive with him. Addition actual close." Clara Ara absolved into the allowance captivation her tablet. "Sir, we've advised the school's Aegis footage." "Play it," Mr. Jonathan said firmly. She angry the awning adjoined him, alike admitting he couldn't see. Ella leaned in. What she saw fabricated her abdomen drop. It was footage from beforehand that day, Joshua walking into the academy before the alarm rang. But he wasn't alone. An alpine man in a hoodie handed him a baby envelope. They battened for almost a second. Joshua nodded, tucked the envelope in his bag, and went inside. Helen covered her mouth. He's alive with them. Ella's articulation cracked. Not necessarily, Clara replied. He ability except been threatened or manipulated. We don't apperceive yet, but we will, Mr. Jonathan said, assent boring with his cane. Clara adapt a car. I appetite to accommodated this boy's parents. They accustomed to Joshua's neighborhood. Abandoned area of acreage Lagos. Area artery lights almost formed and electricity blinked like candle flames. Aback they agape on the board aperture of his house, a woman answered. Her eyes sunken, her amateur weary. Good evening. Clara began gently. We're actuality to allocution about your son, Joshua. The woman hesitated, a fresh stepped aside. Amuse appear in. Their baby allowance was chaotic with buckets, clothes, and a tiny kerosene stove in the corner. Joshua sat on a stool, arch-bowed. Aback he saw Ella, his face palled. I didn't know, he said afore anyone spoke. I didn't apperceive they would aching you. A fresh why? Ella whispered. He looked at her with tears in his eyes. They told me they'd pay for my mother's surgery. She's dying. We accept no money. They said if I gave you that agenda and anesthetized your agenda to them, they'd advise us. I didn't appetite to, but Ella's affection softened, but her abhorrence did not. Who gave you the message? Mr. Jonathan asked gently. Joshua hesitated. Afresh he pulled article from his Piquetta business card. Burnt about the edges. Clara's face drained of color. That's one of the carapace companies Iomi Day acclimated years ago. It was shut down. At Atomic, we thought. Mr. Jonathan stood still, his face a affectation of quiet fury. Clara adapt the car. Were advantageous a visit. They tracked the abode on the agenda to an old barn abreast the Apapa port. It looked abandoned. Absurd windows, decayed gates, weeds burning the driveway. But aback they got close, the bouncer dogs barked. This isn't a loof storage, Mr. Jonathan said. It's a base, aegis amidst the warehouse. Inside, rows of computers bashed softly. Affected documents, character cards, accounts, alms scams. And at the far end, I adore a alpine man in a clothing afterwards a tie, smirking abaft a desk. Well, he said, continuing slowly. The aphotic billionaire assuredly activate me. Mr. Jonathan's anchor on his pike staff tightened. Why are you targeting Helen and her daughter? I am chuckled. Oh, appear now, John. You of all bodies should apperceive the acknowledgement because she approved to abort me and now I'll abort her hope. She didn't abort you. Jonathan replied, articulation low. You destroyed yourself. You absolute from bodies who trusted you. You ran from your shame. And now I'm activity to betrayal you, Clara said. Dispatch advanced with her buzz recording. But I am abandoned smiled wider. You anticipate this ends with a video. I've already buried what I needed. And aback I columnist this. He aerial a baby remote. Your adored Ella becomes history. Clara lunged forward, avaricious the remote, angry at from his duke aloof in time. Guards rushed in. Imamid was affianced to the floor, shouting threats no one listened to anymore. As the badge abandoned him and abject him away, Mr. Jonathan angry adjoined the window. She charged never apperceive how abutting she came to dying, he said quietly. Clara nodded. I'll accomplish a biting of it. Aback home, Ella was cat and mouse at the abodeau aback the car pulled in. She ran into her mother's accoutrements as Mr. Jonathan stepped out, annoyed but smiling. Aggregate is activity to be accept now, he said gently. Ella looked up at him. Is it over? Almost. He knelt slightly, his easily comatose on her shoulders. You've been through added than best accouchement your age, and yet you still chose kindness. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you powerful. She nodded, her eyes glistening. And it's time the apple saw that power. He angry to Clara. Let's activate her foundation. That night, below the bendable ablaze of the moon, a columnist appointment was captivated in the garden of Mr. Jonathan's estate. News reporters lined the hedges. Cameras flashed, microphones extended. Mr. Jonathan, acid his signature atramentous clothing and sunglasses, stood beside Ella and Helen. I present to you, he announced, the Ella Foundation, committed to allowance abandoned accouchement, get admission to food, shelter, and education. Inspired by a little babe who gave her aftermost meal to addition in greater need. Acclaim echoed. But far away in a aphotic cell, I am sat on a bench whispering to a guard. They anticipate it's over, he hissed. But they haven't met the absolute bodies I assignment for. The sun rose over Lagos like a promise. Aureate application acid through the morning broom and comatose acclaim on the mansion's rooftop. Birds chirped over marble balconies and able windows as central action bashed through the halls. Today was the day. Today Ella was acutely acceptable, added than aloof, a survivor. She was acceptable, an attribute of hope. Downstairs in the dining hall, Helen adapted Ella's collar, cutting out her brittle new shirt. The 10-year-old beamed in her blooming and white academy uniform, the badge of brand all-embracing academy now proudly stitched beyond her chest. Does it attending okay, Mama? She asked, spinning already with bemused excitement. Helen chuckled softly, eyes damp. You attending like aggregate I any time prayed for. Clara entered with a big smile. Car's ready, but there's addition who wants to allege with you first. As they angry adjoined the hallway, Mr. Jonathan appeared, dressed in the acceptable agbada, a calm smile on his face. Admitting his eyes were blind, he somehow consistently looked like he could still see every moment clearly. I accept article to accord you, he said, handing Ella a baby clover box. She opened it, boring, and gasped. Central was a argent chaplet with a chaplet shaped like a stethoscope. For the doctor you are activity to become, he said, and wear it. Remember it. Your activity to change lives. Ella threw her accoutrements about him, eyes welling. Thank you for assertive in me. I didn't accept to, he replied, admiration gently. You believed in yourself first. Aback you gave abroad your aftermost meal at the academy gate. The columnist had aggregate again, this time to awning Ella's official enrollment. Reporters flashed cameras as Clara gave an abrupt speech. She's not aloof a student, Clara told the cameras. She's a story. Proof that benevolence still exists in the world. Central the school, Ella was taken to the principal's appointment area, an abruptness accessible her, a scholarship letter not aloof for primary or accessory education. Your approaching is secured, the arch said kindly. Now go accomplish article abundant of it. As Ella skipped bottomward the hallway, clutching the letter like treasure, she chock full at the library window. Her absorption stared aback at her. A babe who already begged below bridges, now walking the halls of one of the best schools in Lagos. She abreast to herself. I will alleviate bodies aloof like I was healed. Meanwhile, aback at the estate, Helen accustomed to abruptness of her own. Mr. Jonathan stood beside a man in a clothing captivation of folder. Helen, I've acutely active over buying of one of my adjacency mini-arts to you. It's yours. Staff, inventory, salary, everything. Helen abandoned to her knees. Two don't alike perceive how to administer a business anymore, she said, shaking. You won't be accomplishing it alone, Clara said. We've assassinated administrator to run the day. Today you'll be guided every footfall of the way. All you charge to do is accept in yourself again. Tears caked bottomward her cheeks. Thank you for abating not aloof my daughter's future, but my dignity. Afterwards that week, in a best aegis ability alfresco Lagos, I amidst sat in a visitor's room, wrists cuffed to the table. But he wasn't alone. A man in a white capan entered and sat beyond from him, face hidden abaft aphotic glasses. He placed a blubbery envelope on the table. We warned you not to go afterwards, the girl, the man said coldly. I didn't perceive she was adequate like that. You apparent our network. The barn was shut down. Our bodies are fleeing. I can fix it, Iamid begged. I can get her budding again. Aloof let me out. The man stood, buttoned his coat, and leaned in. You're done. The plan moves advanced afterwards, you. And afresh he absolved away. Abrogation Iomide alone. Betrayed by the actual arrangement he helped build. 6 years later, the anteroom at Luth Teaching Hospital was arranged with acclamation families, appreciative parents, and aglow graduates in white coats. Among them stood an adolescent woman, taller now, aglow with confidence. Ella Helen Adme, top of her class, best in pediatrics and youngest apostle at the ceremony. As she stepped to assimilate the date to accord her speech, she scanned the advanced row and saw Mr. Jonathan, earlier now, but still proud. Helen sat beside him, well-dressed and smiling, a acknowledged baron in her own right. Ella took the microphone. 6 years ago, she began, I was the abandoned babe who gave her abandoned meal to a aphotic beggar. I didn't do it assured annihilation in return. I did it because my mother accomplished me that no amount how little we have, addition consistently needs it more. She paused as the allowance went quiet. That man angry out to be a billionaire. But I wasn't afflicted by his money. I was afflicted by his acceptance in me. And today I angle actuality not aloof as a doctor, but as an active archetype of what kindness, faith, and additional affairs can do. Thunderous acclaim abounding the room. Outside, as the graduates erish for photos, Ella absolved up to Mr. Jonathan. She captivated her accoutrements about him. "You gave me tomorrow," she said softly. He smiled. "And you gave me a acumen to accept again." They stood there for a moment, two bodies brought calm by a bowl of rice, and as the sun bicon-cave abaft the Lagos skyline, Ella angry to the future, her stethoscope bright in the aureate light, accessible to change the world, one healed affection at a time. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our approach for added absorbing stories.